Hi, everybody. Linda Bloom is here with you for a Bloom Talk. Charlie's teaching in Louisiana, so he can't be here with us today. And so I am going to be addressing with you the topic of how do you define success? And if you are being impinged upon by the prevailing view around us in this culture in North America, you will probably discover that the prevailing view defines success as money, power, influence, and status. Now, I don't define success that way, but I do have a keen awareness of the drift that's all around me that will prompt me and many others to see success in that light. I define success about the depth and the breadth of my closest relationships, how emotionally intimate, how revelatory, how much in discovery I can be with my inner circle, with my daughter, my son, my husband, my closest friends. And I don't think that this is typical. When you look up the definition in the dictionary of success, it just speaks very openly about something planned and desired and intended. It doesn't say anything about the material form. It could be anything that you desire and intend and plan for. And when you accomplish it, you have that wonderful feeling of success. In a hyper materialistic competitive culture like we live in, that's when it gets transferred into the domain of money. And a lot of people think, oh, I don't believe that money buys happiness. And they'll say it. Well, I don't believe it. I know that money doesn't buy happiness. But if you look more deeply into the way they're living, they may be working a lot. And when they're not at work, they're thinking about work. And so I've had to be really careful myself not to let work have such a big bite in my life and material concerns have such a big bite out of my life that it impinges upon what I know to be true, that I get the most happiness from my closest relationships. When I started to teach courses on happiness, I did a survey of the literature, and all the people in the field of positive psychology that I really admire say the same thing. When they investigate what people are doing when they are feeling uplifted, feeling fulfilled, feeling happy, they are often in close association with family and friends. That gives meaning to their life. So Daniel Gilbert wrote Stumbling on Happiness, and he states in his book that when you are finding yourself thinking that there's something that's going to bring you more happiness, like if you had better health or if you had more money, to think again, because his research was so clear that it is the networks of committed support that we live in, the communities of committed, caring, empathic support that we live in, that give us the strongest feeling of well-being. Ed Diner is another person that I respect in the psychology movement, the positive psychology movement. He did research on the people who were affluent, making $10 million a year on average, and assessed their level of happiness. Then he interviewed people who worked in their organizations. He found that they had a slight edge, but it was only slight, happiness higher than the blue-collar workers who worked for them, the secretarial staff that worked for them, the support people who were in those organizations. So it's really clear from Ed Diner's, from stumbling on happiness. And the one that I love the most is the research that was done on 0 to 7 scale. 0 is I'm not happy at all. 7 is the highest that you can get. And they interviewed people who were where you wouldn't expect to find the happiness scores so high. And 5.8 is a very high score. So they found people in the United States who were affluent, who were comfortable, who had a high standard of living, who gave 5.8 as their average score. But he also found that the Inuits who live in northern Greenland, who live in the frozen tundra and are fishing and hunting as their subsistence survival, they have 5.8. The Maasai who live in Africa, who live in huts made out of dung and who don't have any running water and don't have any electricity, they get 5.8. And the Pennsylvania Dutch, who really are living as people lived in the 18 and 1900s without the advantages of labor-saving devices that we have, they get 5.8. So what is it about these simple cultures that they get such high happiness scores? And the researchers found that they were embedded in webs of support. They were in networks of support. They didn't feel alone. They weren't suffering so much with stress. There was not a competitive spirit, but a cooperative spirit. They were more interested in the well-being of the community, of the family, of the marital pair, of the parent-child relationships, of the sibling relationships. And that was the characteristic that they found that gave those people such high scores, even though materially they were not that well off. They were spiritually advanced. So I think this psychological and spiritual wealth is the most incredibly important teaching that we can find from the positive psychology movement. Thomas Merton warned us when he said, beware that you don't become one of those people who is climbing the ladder of success only to find that your ladder is leaning up against the wrong wall. Because there are many people who would put a script in our hands about how we were supposed to come to success, and that might be their idea of success, but it's not our idea of success. And I think we have to be so awake and so aware and so heads up and so intentional to live the life that's right for us, that what we feel, what we think, what we say, and what we do is all lined up as one. That we live a life of integrity, that we have done our inner looking, we have done our contemplation, we have done our journaling to discover what is heart and meaning for me as an individual. Where am I going to get the most return for my precious life energy? Who do I want to spend my precious time with? What activities do I want to be participating in with those people who are so precious to me? If we take the time to do that, I don't think that we're going to be as run by the messages that the culture is giving us about being clogs in the wheel to make the material machine run. I want to tell you about this research that's done in the positive psychology movement about what we need to thrive in our life is a sense of peace and well-being with some challenge, to be with the people that we love, to keep those relationships in good shape, if there are breakdowns, misunderstandings, arguments, that we become champions of repair so that we fix them, that we don't let the relationships that are important to us drift away, that we spend enough time nurturing the bond between ourselves and the people that are important to us, that we have an attitude of forgiveness, tolerance, acceptance, transparency, vulnerability, all these characteristics that are really essential for having strong bonds with others. If we prioritize relationships with people who are important to us, we can reap the benefits of feeling that we are successful in our lives, no matter what the material comforts are that we've achieved. Because the research is so clear and it's so plain that after you get to rise above subsistence level, where you're not a street person, where you've got money to pay your rent or your mortgage, where there's food on the table, that you rise into the next strata after that, and the one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that, up to the highest levels of economic well-being. They're the same amount of people that are happy and unhappy in every economic group. So if you have been indoctrinated by the prevailing view in the culture, I'm challenging you right now to take a good, hard look at where you're putting your time and attention. And tell yourself the truth. Am I living the life that's dedicated to my own happiness and well-being, and participating with those people that I know are going to bring me the most gratification for my time and attention invested in it? And if I'm not really living up in the 5.8 and 6 and 6.5 and 6.7 and in those higher realms, what are the justifications and rationalizations and stories that I'm telling myself about what's going to bring me more happiness than investing in my relationships? Because we want to examine any mythology, any misguided beliefs that may be in the way of having us evolve into our wisest self before we get old. Wouldn't it be great to not be on our deathbed or, be incapacitated late in life and being forced to really take a look, and to not have regrets that we got wise while we were still young enough to put the corrections in to live the life that we really prize. This is not a new idea. 150 years ago, Ralph Waldo Emerson defined success like this: to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics, and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave a world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden path, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. So if we're paying attention to what our own specific definition of success is, that will be our guiding light to behave in ways that are congruent with our belief system. And we can see what really has meaning, what gives our life purpose, who the precious people are, and what our contribution is to make, and also the contribution to receive from others. So I wish you all well, to spend some time really contemplating what success specifically means to you, because it's a little different for everybody else. Do you know? No, but there's no one size fits all. We have to find clarity about what that is for us, and then get busy. Get busy living from that belief. Okay? I'm wishing you well on your journey. I want to announce that we have the 3 free ebooks for signing up for our email. If you're already on our email list and you want to get the free ebooks, you still can, but you'd have to email us and tell us that. Also, next month on a Sunday afternoon on the 19th in the San Francisco Bay Area in Felton, California, which is very near Santa Cruz where I live, I'm going to be teaching the goddesses in every woman. It's a beautiful course. It's based on Jean Shinoda Boland's book about archetypal psychology and the 7 major Greek goddesses. If you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to call me. I will answer any questions that you have. It's going to be a really valuable day, worth making a trip in from out of town. And I want to announce the topic for next week's talk. It's about self-trust. So we're calling it Got Self-Trust? Exclamation point, question mark. And we hope to see you then. Charlie will be back from teaching in Louisiana. Wishing you all the best.